Back when I was in 6th grade, a bunch of girls at school roped me into trying the infamous Bloody Mary game. It was during recess, and they crowded into the girls' bathroom with the lights off, chanting in front of the mirror while hot water ran to fog it up. One of my friends, Claudia, kept saying it was nonsense and just an old kid's tale meant to scare us. We did everything, spinning around and repeating Bloody Mary, then held our breath in the dark, waiting in tense terror, but nothing happened. Eventually, we flipped the lights back on and stumbled out, half relieved and half disappointed. Claudia just laughed it off and insisted, "See, it's all just a silly story." The following day, however, Claudia came to us pale and shaken as she described finding a black wallet by her front door on her way home. Inside was an old black and white photo of a woman sitting on what looked like a throne, dressed in an antique gown and staring straight ahead with an eerie gaze, plus a note scrawled in red ink that read, "These are the people I killed." Nothing else was in the wallet, and that night Claudia went to bed as usual. But the next morning, she discovered long, bloody scratches on her back and arm. "Well, I believe now," she whispered to us, utterly distraught. Seeing our formerly skeptical friend so terrified sent chills through all of us. About a week later, I faced a nightmare of my own. One night around 3 a.m., I jolted awake with an unshakable feeling that I wasn't alone. My parents were working the night shift, so aside from my siblings asleep down the hall, the house should have been empty and silent. Yet as I lay in bed, I felt a heavy presence in the darkness, as if someone unseen was standing over me. My heart hammered. I was too afraid to even open my eyes at first. As the seconds ticked by in eerie silence, dread built until I finally worked up the courage to crack my eyes open for just a split second. I immediately squeezed them shut again, trembling, because in that brief glimpse I saw a woman's severed head hovering inches above me. It was the head of a pale, pretty woman with lifeless eyes and a frozen grimace. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream, and her dark hair was styled in an old-fashioned, regal updo exactly like the lady in Claudia's photo. I yanked the covers over my head and lay there shaking, silently praying for morning to come. Even now, I cannot forget that horrible floating face, and the thought that Bloody Mary herself might have paid me a visit still haunts me. When I was about 15, I went with a friend to a famous old bar where his family members were performing. We got bored during the show and noticed a roped-off stairway leading to an unused second floor, so we snuck upstairs to explore. The upper level was an abandoned bar blanketed in dust, with no electricity. Only the glow of a full moon through the windows gave just enough light to reveal silhouettes of tables and chairs, while leaving plenty of darkness to send a chill down my spine. In the center of the room stood a huge antique mirror behind the counter. My buddy's eyes lit up when he saw it, and he immediately suggested we try summoning Bloody Mary for a laugh. I was nervous about the idea, but I agreed, heart pounding in the dark. We stood side by side before the massive mirror and began chanting her name into the blackness. At first, I could barely make out our reflections except as faint shadowy shapes. But as we repeated Bloody Mary, I noticed something shifting in the glass. My own face was starting to change, warping into an image that wasn't me at all. A terrifying, demonic visage staring back at me. I wanted to stop right then. My gut was screaming that we'd seen enough, but my friend urged me to keep going. Before I could even get another word out, a dark human-shaped figure slowly materialized between our reflections, the figure of a woman with long hair. We both saw her at the same moment and let out a yell of pure terror. At that exact instant, a deep guttural growl echoed from the direction of the stairwell, followed by a loud, vicious bark. We whipped around and saw a huge black dog at the top of the stairs, its eyes wild and its teeth bared, just staring at us. In the blink of an eye, the beast bolted down the stairway into the shadows. We tore out of that room as fast as we could, practically tumbling over each other down the steps. But when we reached the bottom, there was no sign of any dog at all. To this day, I have no explanation for what we witnessed up there in the dark. It remains the single most terrifying experience of my life. My scariest encounter with Bloody Mary happened when I was about 7 years old during a sleepover at my cousin's house. We challenged each other to see who would be brave enough to summon Bloody Mary. We were in my cousin's basement bedroom, which had no windows and a big mirror mounted on the wall, making it the perfect creepy spot. We switched off all the lights, huddled together in front of the mirror, and for a while we just giggled and dared each other to start. We'd nervously whisper Bloody Mary a couple of times and then chicken out, not really expecting anything to happen anyway. Finally, one of my cousins got fed up with our hesitation and suddenly screamed, "Bloody Mary!" at the top of his lungs. The instant he did, we all saw a flash of bright white light, some kind of vague, glowing shape, burst out of the mirror into the darkness of the room. All of us shrieked and bolted for the stairs at the same time, in such a blind panic that we nearly trampled each other scrambling up from that basement. I don't think any of us stopped running until we were upstairs in the light, absolutely convinced that we'd just seen something impossible. None of us dared go back down there that night, and we never attempted that game again. Even now, nearly a decade later, I still refuse to go into that basement bedroom alone. That same mirror is still there on the wall, and every time I even glance at it, I get a chill. I actually asked my cousin about it recently, and she agreed that the room just hasn't felt the same ever since that night. We might be older now, but neither of us will ever forget how terrified we were by whatever we think we saw in that mirror. A few years ago, I was at a group sleepover with friends when we decided to test the Bloody Mary legend. We all squeezed into the bathroom, turned off the lights, and chanted Bloody Mary 3 times at the mirror. Nothing unusual happened in the moment, aside from nervous giggles, and eventually everyone shrugged it off and went to sleep on the living room floor. I have insomnia, so I stayed up reading on my phone for a while after the others conked out. Sometime past midnight, I started hearing faint movement downstairs. At first I thought it might be one of the parents coming home, or maybe a friend sneaking to the kitchen, until I realized the sounds were of a woman softly sobbing. The crying began as a distant wail from the first floor, then grew louder as slow, heavy footsteps creaked across the floorboards below. My blood ran cold. I nudged my sleeping friends, but none of them woke up. I was alone, clutching my blanket, listening in terror as the footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs and began to climb. Step by step, the unknown visitor ascended, accompanied by that awful low crying. The floorboards on the landing groaned, and then the footsteps stopped right outside the bedroom door where we all lay. In our frightened state earlier, we had actually locked that door. Now the doorknob rattled violently as something or someone tried to get in from the hall. It jiggled and clicked, but the lock held tight. After a few seconds of that, the floor creaked again, and I heard those sobbing footsteps move away toward the bathroom where we'd done the ritual. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything went quiet. I didn't sleep a wink after that. I just lay there rigid with fear until the first light of dawn crept in. Only then did I dare unlock the door and peek into the hallway. Nothing was there. In fact, the house was exactly as it had been the night before. Every window still shut and latched, the front door still locked from the inside. We kids had been the only ones in the house that night, so it couldn't have been someone's parent or a prank. As for what I heard, I still have no logical explanation. Either a very real intruder somehow got inside and then vanished, or we truly summoned something not of this world. Whichever it was, the experience absolutely chilled me to the bone. And I know I was wide awake the whole time. I definitely didn't imagine it. As a curious kid, I once decided to try the Bloody Mary ritual by myself late one night after everyone else in my house had gone to sleep. Heart pounding, I turned off the bathroom light, stood before the mirror, and whispered Bloody Mary 3 times into the darkness. Nothing happened. The mirror just reflected my own anxious face back at me. Feeling both relieved and a little silly, I left the bathroom and went to bed. That night, I had an incredibly vivid nightmare. In the dream, I was back in my bedroom, But everything was wrong. The wallpaper on my walls began sagging and melting, colors dripping down as if the room itself were rotting. A faint, mocking laugh echoed around me, the voice of a woman growing louder by the second. I bolted for the door, but the knob had vanished, leaving no way out. The laughter swelled, and it felt like it was coming from right behind me. Desperate, I spun around. The small mirror on my dresser was showing something impossible. The pale silhouette of a woman standing right behind me, long dark hair hanging over her face and eyes glinting as she grinned at me. With a surge of terror, I lunged at the mirror and smashed it with my bare hands, and the glass shattered with a blood-curdling scream. I jolted awake, gasping and tangled in my sheets. For a brief moment, I thought it had all been just a horrible dream, until I noticed the glint of broken glass on my bedroom floor in the early morning light. My little bedside mirror was lying there in pieces, and my right hand was cut and bleeding. I stared in shock, remembering how in the dream I had smashed that mirror. Somehow, I had really done it in my sleep exactly the same way. To this day, I have no clue what truly happened. Maybe I thrashed around and knocked it off the dresser, or maybe something far more sinister crossed over from that nightmare. All I know is that I'm never invoking Bloody Mary again.